Oh, the hate machine. Yeah, I mean, we can do that later. All right, ladies and gentlemen. No women watch this show or ever will, but welcome to Broken Gears Airsoft. Tonight we are talking about. Actually, this is kind of the second de facto second part of our last one, Mike, about running a store. Tonight we're talking about running an op, which I don't know which is a more profound experience, but that's one thing we can obviously get into tonight.
I think they both age you.
Disproportionately,
Where this
yeah.
gray came from. I'm only 23.
Wow. I don't know how we explain Tom then, who's well, he's actually 14, right? I
He's
forgot.
been 14 for the last 26 years. I
I'm
mean,
not yet. I'm crisscrossing different aspects of our of Broken Gears lore
I'm pretty sure he
after
time travels too, but
when
I
the
can't
wiki
prove it yet.
finished. All right, so yeah, I think anyone never realistically watching this is knows who we are at this point. But on the off chance that it's somebody's first episode, why
Your
don't you tell us
law
a bit about
changed
yourself,
the
Mike?
channel.
That's again, there's a lot of things that'll go without saying by the time we get
Yeah.
through with this. But yeah,
Yeah.
Mike, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself in the context of op planning? Just I don't know how long you've been involved with that side of the hobby. I don't know how much we've touched on that before, and
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe some of your favorite
Um,
events actually had a hand in staffing, or
yeah.
really
I
anything.
started I started out doing airsoft back in about 2000, 2001. It was mostly backyard spring stuff. And then we progressed on to collecting more people. And by probably 2003, maybe 2004, we were doing 60, 70 person games pretty much every other weekend from spring until fall. We did that for, oh, geez, I don't even know. An eternity, it seemed. 2013, maybe 2014, we started slowing down. We got a smaller field, and I've worked on no less than 7 fields, not including like larger games. I've done a lot of work with John Liu over the years at a lot of different places. We've done Fort Drum, we did Ransomville. Ransomville games were 500-person games. We've done a variety of different game designs and small, big, whatever. We've done it. I enjoy the bigger games. They're a lot of fun, but it's a lot of moving parts. And if the op plan's not solid, the games suck. Smaller games are a lot easier to control, I think. But
Yeah,
as far as like my favorite game of all time is probably the rendition of Bitter Harvest. It's a super LARPy game. It's not for everybody. Some people come out and have a horrible time, and then everybody else seems to have a riot with it because they can just be weird. Well, weirder than getting dressed up like GI Joe and running around the woods and shooting at each other, because that's a little weird all by itself. But yeah,
it's
it's
weird to put in a building too.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much. But yeah, it's. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, and I've done a lot of national level events, a lot of smaller events. You know, I think it's the game design is important, and that's I think we're going to delve into later on. So
100%. Yeah, obviously, I know it was probably one of the smaller items on your portfolio, but obviously Redbrook was on there, the late
yep,
great field we both helped run and met through. I was involved with the op planning for one, two, more or less 3 seasons in some serious capacity. Well, kind of four.
almost
Uh,
four. Let's say you
that
helped
was,
me out that first year. You helped me out the last half of the season,
yeah,
so I
sure.
would count that.
And whatever you want to call 2020, we'll say it's a half season.
Yeah, no, it was a season. I don't know if it
Yeah,
was a good season, but it was a
right.
season.
It went, as a buddy of mine says, and
Yeah,
he was also involved in some form of event organization. But yeah, so that was really something I got into. Was it about 6 years ago that I first linked up with you guys and really got to sing? I mean, I don't even know how much airsoft I had played up until that point. I mean, adjusted for backyard, afternoon games for
yeah,
3.5 hours and then a late lunch. But that was when I really got to see, oh, there is a side to this beyond, meeting up at an indoor joint for 4 hours and going out for burgers after, which I routinely do. I mean, we're not here to
put
get
that
into
down.
a dick measuring contest about one style of play versus the other. Isn't that a huge thing in paintball, like the indoor, like the field guys versus the woods guys? I don't even know if paintball has a
I
culture
mean,
anymore.
honestly, when airsoft came in, I think that it was the same for airsoft versus paintball.
Mhm.
People were very staunchly on one side or the other.
Yeah,
I think that now, though, it's kind of like you know well, I'm going to go out and shoot things. So I'm going to go to the airsoft because I want to do more of my military impersonation, or, I'm going to do paintball because I really just want to dump paint on somebody. Although I think it's true with airsoft too. I mean, there's definitely guys that just go out and just shoot because they want to shoot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you'll find that no matter what, you'll have a little bit of rivalry with any kind of similar sport.
Sure.
So,
But that is one thing that you alluded to earlier, and I just want to mention right out the gate is that this is we're talking about. I don't want to use words like upscale or high level, but definitely more seriously involved
yeah, not a pickup game.
rules
Not,
versus
you
what you
or
might see in your local indoor joint.
Yeah.
And we are staunch patrons of our local indoor joints. I mean, this is one of those times when we do want to be very clear that we're not, again, talking shit. This is just a different thing. We very well may later on, but not about that. So, so if you're here and just learning about or want to learn all about how to run a game, maybe a little, maybe you've played a few pickup games, maybe you and 5 friends have shot each other in the woods 14 times in the last 13 weekends and are ready to do something a little more legit, you've come to the wrong place. But I mean, you'll probably learn a couple things within the next hour or so. So
what not to do.
Yeah. So Mike, on the first item of that list I sent you earlier is basically, just for lack of a better word, the context of our game. So we're building the game. What is everyone here? Why is side A shooting at side B? Obviously, this is something that we've already established is more complicated than green versus tan, and just how much more do we want to do that? Oh, he returneth. What up?
I'm back.
Oh, I can hear you and see you right as
wild.
Right out the gate. We're just getting into it, so perfect timing. What's the beer of the week?
The Snow from Community Beer Works.
Oh, cool! Shouts out, good guys. I thought you were going to pick up the 91% rubbing alcohol that I know is right next to you in your printing station, but
that is an option.
Hops number 9.
That I also have that. That's over in the other room, but yes.
Yeah.
A medley.
So, anywho, we've started to talk about context for events.
Yeah, we're just getting into op planning time. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself in this respect, Tom, as your second time on camera, but you've definitely played no small role as like a, if I'm like Scipio Africanus, you're like one of my centurions. So
sure.
What as a mid-level, not like an upper level, an NCO equivalent staffer at some of our events. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you've been involved in with us and in one capacity?
So basically, my role at Ops has been as, and I'm not sure if that actually got posted, the previous discussion that we had. Oftentimes, I find myself in the role of trusted team member, basically. So I usually, personally, I don't usually take up leadership roles at an op as like a staffer, but I do just as a player. Oftentimes, it's part of the gear that I bring as well. I end up acting as kind of a game balancer, or like if I'm bringing the tank, for instance, like armored vehicles, that's kind of something you have to work into the op plan, and you have to work closely as the tank operator with the op planners to make sure things aren't getting unfun for people. If I have particular pieces of equipment that I'm bringing along that might also impact the game, that can be a thing. Oftentimes, in the past, I've also acted as an NPC, which isn't necessarily acting directly as a staffer. You do have some autonomy in that role, depending on the type of game. But I could act as an NPC or just as a special normal player that has something to do with an objective, things of that nature.
Right. So again, you're more of one of our mid-level guys on sometimes neutral, sometimes on a particular team, just helping everything.
Well, and you've been doing this for at least 12 to 15 years.
Yeah, that too.
To point out, you haven't really run a lot of big games, but you've helped to run all.
I've been present for a lot of them, so I know how they work. I know how they work. Like if we're saying, "Hey, we're doing a bitter harvest," I know what that means, and I know where I can help out in that. So yes,
one of our prominent LARP rule sets. Just to be good, did that originate locally, or did we rip that off of somebody else? I forget.
No. Everything we got here, honestly, guys, has always been local.
Sure.
Bitter Harvest came from Hivemind.
That's right.
The concepts for that came directly from Hivemind. We've modified the bejesus out of it and allowed a lot of lateral progressiveness, shall we say? Things that I don't think Dave really appreciates, but have definitely added to more antics. We've done parking tickets for the tank. That was fantastic.
Great idea. God.
Cheater's a brilliant human being. We've had all sorts of people brought their own flowers one year, and that kind of broke the economy because nobody knew what they were, so they were giving them. They thought they were really rare. Yeah, that was kind of fun. People print their own money because that's a thing. There's probably, if you look up Rosham bucks on the internet, you'll probably find a template to make your own.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, literally, it wouldn't shock me at all. But yeah, it's people brought gems into the games and changed the dynamic of what we were doing with that game. And I think that was actually one of the things that I really enjoyed was the fact that it went from a really cool concept and it just kind of took a life of its own.
100%.
Sorry.
No, this is all relevant though. As Tom Reddy's jumped in, as I was saying, we were talking about guys, case where we've played a few backyard games, with nap time and lunch, with our friends. Maybe we have clear plastic springers, maybe we have combat machines. It doesn't matter. And so we're looking to really learn about organizing a more an event with, as Mike said in a roundabout way earlier, more moving parts, so more interest, a little more to do.
Yep.
So the first thing we want to establish is just what is the context of once we're at this talking about this level of play, why is side A shooting side B? It's obviously more than than opposing uniform colors necessarily. We play, we have all kinds of different rule sets that involve insurgents and stuff like that. So what do we really want to see first, laid out as we again get these, get this rule set together? I'm going to try not to have too many strong opinions tonight, but one of them that I'm going to come out swinging with right now is just a wholesale advocation to just start developing your own universe. It doesn't have to be our late great Rochambodia, which is literally a fake country somewhere ambiguously in the Mediterranean with other neighboring fake countries and a history going back to colonial times and a Google site that looks like a national archive. But it's just so much easier and so much less of a problem in so many different ways than I can't believe it's not Azerbaijan fighting whoever.
His neighbor.
So yeah, Mike, you guys have the floor.
Sorry, you want to go first, Tom?
No, go right ahead.
All right. I think that the biggest thing is, you're right. I think that, anything, unless you're replicating a certain battle of a certain period in a certain time, like if you're doing a Black Hawk Down,
that was going to be my first thing, yeah.
Then by all means, stick to that. If you wanted to do, a World War II themed game with modern weaponry, that's cool.
Stuff like that is fun. Yeah.
There was a steampunk series that Eli had put together for us, and I've got the rules. Cool. And it's basically, we didn't win World War II, and the world kind of stopped at that technology level. So, you still have slow moving tanks, and everybody owns machine guns, and it's just a really cool concept. And I really wanted to work with it. I didn't realize who had actually sent it to me, and it's been sitting there literally in a file of mine for the last 10, 12 years. So we were talking about things to do at Redbrook for 2020, and that was one of the things that came to mind. I reached out to Eli, and we had talked about maybe doing that for the end of 2020 into 2021, but then we closed the field. So I've got this awesome steampunk idea, like a full rule set of history, kind of like what Evan did for Rochambodia, and I was going to pitch that as being our next adventure locally. But, you never know. I might get involved in another field. God help me if I do. Never did.
Never say never.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, even for pure hypotheticals, that sounds like more content to me. Maybe we could have a 3-part mock series of what does a season at a real airsoft field look like.
I would love to get Eli to come on to discuss it, and same with Evan is go back and forth. I mean, maybe later on we could do a different episode about that because that'd be kind of cool. Concept.
That setting you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm in.
But in any case, I mean, if you have a concept in your head about what you want the game to be, then that's fine. And if you run out of concepts for games, which is what I did, we jumped into making a fictitious world. And once you do that, if you have some imagination or you've read a couple of, game books or whatever, You ever played Twilight 2000? Like, you literally could go out and design games that actually are quite entertaining, just on basic force on force objective capturing. Nothing too crazy into LARP.
It
but
doesn't need to be.
I mean, we've done games where the player we had a squad of players who just went out and took pictures. They never shot around all game, and they had the best time they've ever played airsoft, and they still talk about it to this day. And that was, I don't even know, that was years ago. It
I
was
can remember hearing about that. Yeah.
Boogie and Boat Crew.
Yeah, Boat Crew was probably, I think it was a little
Yep.
bit before you, Matt, but yeah.
We were down at Hunter's Creek, and they were like, "We want mission."
You'd see a bunch of guys wearing dark colors stalking in the distance, and you'd be like, "What team are they on?" They weren't on a team. They were just out there taking photos. It's fucking awesome.
Taking photos of everybody, and I was like, "This is kind of cool."
Oh, so they were like a sneaky press corps. They weren't running around in orange vests.
No, they were like a recon element. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
We've done games like that. We've done games with limited ammunition to try and make that more interesting, where you only get to have, like, what do we do at Vidaris? 200 rounds or something, 100 rounds?
Yeah, not a lot to start.
We've done UR games, which were designed to be as absolutely
ultra realistic.
Yeah. There's a lot of like spy versus spy, but in squad form. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of cool. I really enjoyed doing those, but there's a lot. That's a whole different legwork problem. Because you're playing in real world situations. I mean, you're not actually playing. You're not running around shooting out of your car. Nothing weird. But, there was rule sets that were designed for, mock combat with people around. And, we kidnap people in malls and put them in the trunk of their car. And, like, I don't know if it would fly now, but we had a lot of fun doing that. I don't know. Again, like, I just trying to explain that to a cop is tough. We did have a police involvement during one of the UR games. These guys were sitting in a dark SUV taking pictures of a house, and the neighbors was like, "What are you guys doing?" And they reached out to the local police, who knew nothing of it, of course, because you don't tell the cops you're doing UR games. The first rule of UR games is you don't tell the cops about UR games. Anywho. Right. So the cops were called. They showed up. The neighbor was very concerned, and I know the boy that lives there. He's a really nice boy, and of course that boy was Phoenix. And so we were like, no, actually, he's in on the game. Like, this is a game of like capture the spy. And then they were like, oh, well, why are you all wearing paramilitary gear with fake replica firearms in your truck? And I'm like,
listen.
What part of spy versus spy don't you get? Like, it was a little awkward, but the police, they had a good laugh at the end of it all. We were able to reset the game and keep going.
Sure.
After explaining that perhaps surveillance like that should not be in our things. So we had a little bit of learning curve trying to figure out what we could and couldn't get away with, because a lot of it was borderline shady, I guess. So there's that.
We're figuring out how far you could push the envelope.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, as far as the game design and the background, like, you have to give the player base a reason. Like, otherwise it's a pickup game. Like, I mean, that's the way I look at it. If you don't have a reason or a context or a storyline of some sort, then you're at a pickup game. If it's just go over here and one team goes on this side, one team goes on that side, and shoot in the middle, that's a pickup game to me.
It's not even just a pickup game, especially right now. It's a probably $25, $30, $35, $40 a head pickup game.
Right. So, as where I like to
rightfully want to get their money's worth, and
right.
that doesn't always mean the experience they can go get, even at the same field, at a $10 skirmish.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a different level of play.
Well, let Tom talk a little bit too, because you've got any input.
Yeah, Tom, anything?
Yeah, in terms of theming and the sort of the background stuff, I see it mostly as, obviously we're here to play airsoft, so it's here as a vehicle to help us, or to help people write the games and, give them something to base their stuff off of. Players certainly like to see a little bit of background. I think the way that you guys presented stuff with for background context for people that don't know, Matt and Mike and Evan put together a fake news page that was a Facebook page, and would, prior to the ops, actually make fake news posts not fake news posts, but fake news posts to, although they were, they would basically
in-universe news page.
There you go. They would make news posts that were describing events that were happening prior to the games and leading up to the battles or, running games that would result in the actual ops. So that's kind of fun for people. Again, I think mostly it's in your actual op packet or anything you hand out to people, probably not necessarily worth including too much background. I think it's fun to include, maybe a couple paragraphs of fluff, and especially, just my take, I think it's really fun if you give a little something to the people that actually did watch or read into it a little bit more. Maybe make an objective, like maybe have an alternate way of completing an objective, or maybe some sort of hint to where objectives might be in the background fluff. Can be kind of an interesting way to go about it for the people that actually give two shits. But no, and as you said, otherwise it's just a pickup game if you don't have any cool background fluff. I think if you're considering taking things to the next level as an actual op writer, you probably already have some creative interest anyway. So I mean, it's not going to be a huge hassle. If you don't, and you're not a writer and you don't really like that kind of stuff, personally, I don't think, and I've been to plenty of producer-level games, high-level games like John Liu games, I think, fit this bill pretty well. They don't really write any story for it. There might be an incredibly loose, like, roughly, like, this is the Battle of X, or whatever, like, the Operation Irene games, those were, like, very loosely Black Hawk Down themed, but they didn't necessarily simulate any particular part of the battle. Most of it was just add some, basically, here's a background theme to how you can dress and things like that. That'll give you some idea of like what loadout you might want to do, but by and large isn't really going to have anything to do with the actual objectives. Those are just going to be kind of keeping it simple. So I do think it is
one thing.
Go right ahead.
For the Irene games, they always do the Mogadishu Mile.
That's fair.
So all the ones that I went to that Max was running the U.S. side, they always did the mile, and they were, guys that were worse shaped than I was were huffing it down. And I always thought that was cool shit. And you're right, though. I mean, most of the John's games, they have a very loose setup to them, but they're nothing like what we did with Rochambeau.
And frankly, I don't level that as a criticism.
No.
Especially when when you have 1,000 people to write a game for, you really can't afford to be getting way down into the weeds with a lot of this stuff. Which I actually think brings up another good point, that you should probably cater the level of story and fluff to your audience's reading comprehension / give a shit level.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Go right ahead then. That is pretty much all I got, to be perfectly honest, in terms of the
I didn't actually
background.
have a segue planned. I just,
didn't
want to allude to a rant. But okay, yeah, that's honestly a decent summation of, of what we got to do to set the stage when we're planning something like this. And yeah, I largely agree. One of Tom's last points about how not every game at this level even necessarily has some sort of big, deep, comprehensive lore. And I'll be the first to say it doesn't need it. But it's just an important distinction that if we're not necessarily, jumping into the role play portion, the LARPy stuff is a corner of this corner.
That said, I will. Sorry to jump in real quick.
No, go ahead.
As a thought, the type of game you're running might also have some sort of impact on that, because, like you said, if you're running a LARP game and you don't have any backstory to it, that's not really going to work. I mean, people kind of, especially if it's like heavy LARP stuff, people need to have some backstory to be able to develop a character.
Absolutely.
And go from there. If it's a pure Milsim game, see John Liu, Milsim West, things like that, you can get away with essentially having no background. And as long as the objectives are clear and people know, it's fun to give some context to like why they're doing the objectives. So they're like, why the hell am I just like going and standing in this area? That's cool, but it doesn't need to be more than a sensor to that kind of thing, depending on the game type that you're doing.
Absolutely. Cool. I think that about wraps that up. Let's dive into item 2 here, which is just the venue itself. So what kind of considerations do we want to, to a certain part or extent, it's specific to the venue in question, but what do we want to be mindful of, perhaps first, second, and third and foremost, in regards to making our event jive with the field?
So I got one thing that I can start with, pretty easy, and then I think Mike's gonna probably have some good ones that I don't know about. Strictly from getting fields, because that's something that's I've never been a part of. Like actually going and talking to people and saying like, hey, can we use your field for like shooting small plastic BBs at each other? But first, in my mind, might be a little biased, is going to be safety, personally.
Okay. No, speaking of that, please.
I have definitely been to some fields that were not safe, that were not adequately inspected prior to going to them. Some John Liu games come to mind. Again, no offense. It's like a little questionable.
I inspected them.
Those grain elevators scared the shit out of me. They still scare the shit out of me. I was walking around and doing it. I was health and safety guy at the time, and I was like, "This is fucked." And I'm amazed that nobody died. Pardon my French,
Yeah.
but
Scares me to go to a bar out that way, let alone play airsoft.
Yeah.
Those
but
fucking
yeah, regardless, frankly, if you're watching
Oh.
this video, you're probably not going to be developing games that are going to be at massive, huge venues like the Grain Elevator, like an actual, honest to God, abandoned Grain Elevator, like we hosted our game at.
How about that hotel?
something of a local landmark. just
yeah,
for
things
folk-
like that,
For any
that's-
non-Buffalonians.
Yes,
better or worse.
industrial complexes. Again, this kind of ties into safety, and we'll probably tie into a couple other things here. But obviously, have permission. I feel like that should be pretty obvious. But make sure that you're allowed to play where you're playing. Second of all, do a walk of the field, like nook and cranny. Airsofters will get themselves into places that you would absolutely never expect. If you're in even something that's a building of some sort, no, guarantee it, some schmuck has bought rappelling gear and will absolutely be planned to either be using it or somehow shoving themselves into a vent behind a grate because it seemed like a good idea at the time, and they'll shoot all the guys and nobody would ever expect me to go in here. Yeah, you gotta watch out for that kind of stuff. Bring along some caution tape. Make it abundantly clear to people that they are not allowed to go into areas that have been caution taped off.
Or use the repelling gear.
Yeah, again, this is much more specific to like a city sort of setup, which isn't totally uncommon. Abandoned industrial complexes and things like that are more and more often being used as airsoft venues. Definitely make sure that there's no asbestos hanging from the ceiling that people are going to shoot out and cause tons of problems. Broken glass, things of that nature, all massive hazards that need to be addressed. Woods fields, depending on where you're playing, can also be pretty dangerous. Make sure that like cliffs, little things like that can form from small riverbeds running through stuff can definitely constitute a hazard. Bring all
Never
this
mind
stuff
those.
up in
What
your
about,
safety briefings.
What about decent-sized tree roots, bees nets?
100%. And then you know what? Honestly, those. Yeah, there you go. Bees are a big thing. Actually, I thought it was really nice that you guys had all that stuff cordoned off for ground bees. Ground bees will fuck you up, and that's never a fun time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tree roots, stuff like that. Honestly, yeah, I mean, you might bring it up at a safety briefing, and people will just kind of laugh at you. I mean, you're out in the woods. There's going to be tree roots. No
Hey,
shit.
you got a few viewers now.
If there's anything specific to your field that you as either the owner of said field or somebody who's been there regularly knows is a hazard, make sure to bring that up in your
One
safety
of our
briefings.
regulars, Logan here, makes a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Dealing, casualties, 100%. Sprained ankles definitely add to the immersion.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a car out there that explodes, it's a fucking party.
There you go, dude. People pay extra for that kind of shit.
Sure.
Oh yeah, and then obviously for stuff that you've put up, make sure what you make is safe. If you're gonna put up some buildings, don't have nails sticking out everywhere. Like, airsoft proof your stuff. It's basically like toddler proofing things for all intents and purposes. Because people are going to do stupid shit. They're running around. They're slamming into doors. They're pretending they're a real soldier. They're gonna make a mess, and they're gonna take a lot of risks that will require you to make sure that they understand what they're getting themselves into.
100%.
That's pretty much what I got for that.
All right, here we go. So location becomes kind of key on many levels. Tom hit on the surface of a lot of the stuff that, when I was looking for fields, and again, I've worked off of 7 or 8 fields now, not including like the regional level event stuff that we did with like John Liu and whatnot. So, when I go to scout a building, I want to kind of get an idea in my head, how many people are going to try and cram on this thing? What's the
Really good
minimum,
point.
maximum?
Super good point. God, people fuck that up all the time. I'm sure we're gonna have a pitfalls section, but that is huge.
Yeah, there's
Huge. Yeah, just recently actually, and again, had a super fun time. But it was a Augusta Airsoft down in Virginia. The guys put on a great game. Had a super fun time. We actually got invited out, which was really cool. They did a fantastic, God bless them, they did a great job marketing it. They did too good of a job marketing it. That was a field that was very clearly built to handle maybe 100, 150 people easily, they probably had 500 people there, and it was
A lot.
overcrowded. The main area of combat was a complete cluster the entire day, which is fine. Some people like to have a lot of, like, some people like a complete shit show, BBs flying all over the place, like nowhere to hide because there's so much enemy fire going around. But you do have to make sure that either have hard limits on how many people you're bringing, or make sure you know roughly how many people you want to attend before you go and scout a venue. Sorry, Mike. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. So that would be one of the first things that I'd suggest. The second is logistics. So depending on what you're doing, and I'm gonna kind of default to a larger scale, let's say 100 to 200 people minimum game.
Good size.
You want to make sure that you're not too far from hotels, places to get food.
Oh,
The
100%.
actual venue
Very good point.
needs to have bathrooms of some sort.
Yep.
No bathrooms. Well, now you got to bring in porta potties. What kind of garbage is situation there?
I was just gonna say it.
You know, from a producer standpoint or a field owner standpoint, like, yeah, it might not seem like 60 people can generate that much garbage, but I'll tell you right now, they do. I mean, staggering amounts of garbage after a one-day event. And I mean, like, a 6 foot, I've got a truck with an 8-foot bed. I filled it to the point of overflowing. And then I filled my 6 foot by 8 foot trailer to overflowing with like 30 bags of garbage from one weekend.
Great consideration.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So again, we never bitched about it because it was just part of the running the field, like whatever.
Sure.
But realistically, the logistics come into factor is, if you're doing something that's more than a one-day event, you have to account for the fact that they're going to want food. At some point in time, they're going to be like, hey, I'm going to go out and grab food. I mean, yeah, you can set it up as like a, bring your own food in, but then you have to deal with more garbage. So like trade-off to it. And then, of course, adequate places to use the bathroom is kind of a big deal.
100%.
Especially if you have both sexes there. And I'm being nice about that. I don't mean, any disrespect to anybody else. However, if you have both men and women, they can't share the same bathroom because men are slobs. So that becomes a huge factor. And then, how's the parking situation? Once you've gotten those things kind of worked out, then you can kind of progress forward. For the sake of being a grown adult, like if you're doing something like this, you probably should have insurance of some sort. They do event insurance, which is designed for one-day events. I've used that in the past.
Yeah.
I've done full-on insurance for a field, which we did with Redbrook. So, because we didn't want to have any issues with the owners to get sued if somebody got hurt real bad.
Right.
And that's just even before I put boots on the ground to go look at the place. Now I go to the place, and now I go, hey, Tom, is that a pile of glass? Yeah, some retard's going to climb right in that thing. All right, so we're going to need some caution tape, or we got to be able to block this section off. Oh, you open this door to a stairwell that doesn't exist, and it's a 3-story drop. Oh, we probably should figure out some way of securing this door. Either screw it shut, nail it shut, whatever,
Yeah.
or just leave it open and let nature take its course.
Always an option. Always an option.
Yeah, not really. Not if you like your insurance company, or you like the house you live in. You want to, ever not be bankrupt. So there's all of those things that factor into it. Is the safety of the actual site. So, and then you got to agree to terms with the owner sometimes. Sometimes they don't want money. Sometimes they want a lot of money. So, I mean, like, I've seen $10,000 swap hands for a weekend game. I'm just saying. And that's normal for a big game. So, you start factoring in giant costs out of pocket before the game even starts. You haven't even advertised the thing. You don't even have a date set in stone. You're already looking at, between the dumpster, between having the outhouses shipped in, between paying the guy, paying your insurance. I mean, you could be talking 20, 30K before you even open the doors.
Jesus.
Yeah. So then on top of that, some staff people get paid. I know it's weird.
That's true.
Smaller fields usually don't have paid staff. It's usually your buddies or whatever. But when you get on a national level and you need professionals who understand what a chrono limit is and how to chrono properly, that becomes a huge issue. I mean, yeah, people volunteer for it. Again, it's fine, but you might have paid staff guys. Now you got to worry about payroll. Now you got to worry about workman's comp. Like, it just gets ballooned crazy quick. You can work as subcontractors for doing this kind of stuff, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes the sites need prep work. You got to go in there and board off windows or knock out glass. Sometimes you just let the players do that and you get mixed results. We had a hotel game in the Falls a number of years back, and it was literally the definition of what chaos looks like, refined in a cold refrigerator. We were in there in January. The place hadn't been heated in 2 years. Burst pipes everywhere. Like the ambient temperature was 12 degrees inside.
Oh.
And we ran around like idiots all weekend or all day long. It was a riot. Like, it was absolutely nuts. We had permission to kind of go through and train wreck the place. So we went through and knocked holes through every wall. There was a group of guys.
I watched the guys who knocked a hole through a fucking firewall in a staircase. God bless them. And there's 3 layers of cinder blocks. They spent like 2 hours doing that just to get a 6-inch hole to shoot through.
I'm not mentioning names, but it rhymes with Men Yan. So that was the crew that got that. Yeah, they just. When I first heard the pounding, I'm like, "Who's tearing the whole place down?" I walked down the hall. I saw who it was. I laughed and
with an 80-pound piece of black iron pipe that they were using as a battering ram. Just it's like, what in God's name is happening here?
Wait, nobody had a sledge?
No, they had sledges, no doubt. They were using sledges and this big ass piece of pipe.
But the pipe was doing more damage.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was doing more damage.
Dude, it was like a 200-pound piece of pipe, and 3 guys are just like slamming at it like a medieval wall. It was great.
Bam, bam, bam. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh man.
Jesus Christ. It's just Minas Tirith shit.
No kidding.
Yeah. But that said, we've done games at military facilities. We've done them at Fort Drum. Exactly. Get the boys at work tearing them down the walls. So, a lot of the times, it depends on where you were located. It would dictate what you can and can't get away with. So, and then it furthermore allows you to bring in other aspects of the game, like technicals or helicopter assets if you can secure them. Like, there's things that you can do that you on some fields you can't do on others. So, as you're kind of, that's kind of what you have to look for is, what's the end design for your game? How big do you want it to be? How cool is it going to be? How much extra crap are you going to bring into it? What kind of, and we're not even talking promotional yet, which is a whole nother realm of what. So, I think that it really factors in when we get there on the field. You have to go through and you have to look. And going in green is okay, and you'll notice some stuff, but after you've done this for, I'm going to say 5 years, like you can walk onto any airsoft field and be like, oh, this is a death trap. Someone's going to die here. Okay.
Yeah.
Or you'd be like, oh, this is safe. I feel okay here. Like, I'm not worried about tripping, falling, breaking my neck, getting run over, running into farm implements that are rusting in the wheatgrass. That happen. Barbed wire. Oh, yeah. Constant fear. We ran into that in the military bases. Generally speaking, it's just you have to really know what you're getting yourself into. And, as far as the terms of the people that you are renting from, you have to have something that's pretty solid. Something that kind of goes over everything that could possibly go wrong so that they understand the depth of what you're proposing. And most sane people, when they see that list, will go, yeah, I don't want you guys here. Seriously, like I wouldn't allow someone to come and do that on my properties. Like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah.
Because someone would die, or if they did die, I'm screwed. So, there's insurance policies and stuff that helps it out, but it comes down to choosing a field that makes the most, yeah.
I was just saying, it's like toddler proofing. You have to assume people are going to be doing the stupidest possible things at your field.
Seen it all. Like, I don't think there's anything anymore that shocks me. Every now and then I'll get a picture and I'm like, yeah, that's coming.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, we broke 5 viewers, and I think it took half as long as last week. So there's that.
I'm blaming Tom.
Mm-hmm.
They're all
pretty
fake.
face.
He starts showing himself on camera, and now we have an audience. So we have
That's right. You
There
get tired
you
of looking at you and me, man. I'm telling you.
It used to be fun, man.
What
if eventually the show explodes and there's like a really an absurd subcult of the fan base that were like, oh yeah, the show was really good back in episodes 1 to 5, but now that they're on 15, this is just out of control.
Yeah, they gotta stop swearing so much. Fuck you. Anywho, so yeah, I think that field management, you have to be there, you have to walk it, you have to know what you're walking yourself into. I've seen some really cool stuff done in junkyards. I've seen some really cool stuff done in industrial waste area. I've seen stuff done that probably shouldn't have been done. I've done games that definitely probably shouldn't have been done. Not that I'm really saying there, you really need to not follow my footsteps. Please don't follow my footsteps. We did a lot of really shady shit when we were younger. As things got older, we kind of calmed down a little bit, but it's the layout becomes huge, and you have to really know the resources and what you've got going to it. That's
To my knowledge, we have our first actual organic follower. I mean, don't take this the wrong way, man. I have no idea who this is, though, and it's not one of my friends that I shield for. So welcome _ a cardboard box.
Whoa!
A couple guys from the RA Discord.
Hey,
nice.
chuck the
These could be people. What's up?
chuck the link to that Discord. John. Chuck the link to the Discord in that chat in case anybody here isn't in it.
Tom, if you're on like a serviceable computer right now, it's literally the first thing that shows up on a Facebook search of like Rochester Airsoft Discord. An old post of theirs. That's how I came or found it last night. Cool people so far. I only joined this afternoon, but yeah, solid group. Looking forward to getting out there soon. And obviously, they were public posts, so I hope John doesn't mind that. I really like what the new place is looking like so far. They still got a lot of work to go, but our buddy John over here in the chat, GrowA4 0xA4.
Why don't we should have John on this stream. He's a better guy than me for this kind of stuff. You gotta kidding me. He owns a friggin' field. Come on.
Wow, I'm not opposed one bit. But yeah, maybe we'll have to do a show at the field sometime.
There you go.
Back.
Hey,
I believe he's
up and running, we need to go out there.
What?
When he gets 100%. It up and running, we need to go out there.
I think he's talking late spring, based on a post I saw.
Hey man, if you need some labor, I know some guys.
Don't call me. I can't do it. I'm too old.
An Enterprise. Tom, was that Enterprise of explosives enthusiasts?
Some sort of ragtag group of morons.
Militant. Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, we could. I mean, I know it's a fun thing to say, but we probably legit could do like a show on venue considerations if we're really diving that deep into the minutia. But I think we've touched on, for the purposes of this episode, all the key points. If you guys had nothing in the way of closing remarks.
For that, no, I think we're good. I mean, it gives you kind of an idea of what you got to look for. So
right.
I know we didn't really do it in the whole 1, 2, 3 format. I would personally say safety. I think honestly having a venue that's scaled to the amount of people that you plan to bring, and then any ideas for 3? Nothing really comes to mind off the top of my head.
Liability, which dovetails with
that's a good thought. Yeah, no, liability is a really good one. That's true. Yep.
Finances, that's obviously not relevant, but not explicitly any of those other things. So I mean, be ready to eat a lot of money if you're really going to do something legit.
Yep.
Yeah,
but
John,
I think
I can tell you nightmare stories. I'm sure.
Oh God.
Cool. So on to what I imagine will probably be the shortest of the 4, which could still mean 20 minutes here, are just what we expect to play. So we've sorted out what exactly side A is doing, why side A hates side B, and what greater context that exists within. We've made sure we're not going to be sued into poverty if something goes wrong. We've done everything we can to make sure nothing goes wrong in that sense in the first place. Everyone who needs to get their check, needs to get cut a check is or will be getting cut a check. We're staffed up. Now I wanted to talk about what exactly we're expecting of players beyond the price of their admission. So in terms of uniform requirements, what else they should be expected to bring, definitely not radios. There's no reason you would ever need to be communicating with other players remotely. But yeah, what else? What do we want to do there? What kind of, I guess we'll start it up with the uniforms and attire.
I'll let you two guys go on that one because I'm curious what because I've never really been on the Well,
you're not off the hook yet. You can still speak as a player.
That's what I'm saying. I want to talk second.
Okay.
Oh, okay. No, fair enough. Go ahead. Go right ahead. If you want me to go first, I'm happy to as a player.
I'll ask both of you guys, and whoever picks it up first can pick it up. What have your favorite experiences been as someone with a little more experience doing this legit than me, in terms of what delineates each team? I told you I really liked the one year we did camo versus literally everything else. I know green and tan is common, whether that's green solid colors versus tan solid colors, greenish camos versus tannish camos. Is there some other way, perhaps, that you've found it really works to, again, delineate Team A from Team B? I
got 2 thoughts on this one. One, so I will say, and I'm going, this is possibly a controversial opinion. I'm going to stick my neck out for armbands. I think I've been to a couple Ballahack games that were very large. This probably
I'm open to it once we're talking about 200 attendees. Again,
this
50,
okay. There you go.
that's-
Exactly. Now at a large game, I think it having 2 armbands, red and blue, keeps it dead damn simple. I had very few IFF issues throughout the day. That's not that hard of a thing to do, especially if you're an op runner. Ballahack actually sells their own like special fancy pants elastic armbands that you can use. They also just
nice.
have like blue and red tape on hand that you can grab a couple rolls of that. No problem. Easy as. Put some tape on both arms. Nobody will be bitching about IFF issues. Obviously, that does require you as the op runner to bring along said tape and make sure that everybody gets it on their arms. That does also piss off players that wear ghillie suits and things of that nature, because then they need some way to actually be able to display those things, which can give them away. I get that. Totally get that. Like, if you went and put 4 hours of work into a ghillie suit the day of, like, putting stuff on it, I don't really want to, screw with your mojo. In terms
because
of things,
I'm not a sniper or a super sneaky player. I'm not. It's really just the role player in me. That's again to a certain extent, not even completely against armbands, but I've never thought about that from the perspective of the ghillie
100%.
suit
I
guys.
completely agree with
I
you.
get them, but that's at the same time so funny.
That's why I said I'm just that is like my first thing. Not a bad idea. I don't think these days you might have gotten pushback on that more often previously, but I don't really think that's as big of a deal. Second thing, this kind of ties back to the first point that we talked about. If you can have some specific reason to tie it back to your actual fluff, that's super cool. People have, God bless Evan, he actually put like what camouflage a lot of the specific factions within his fluff wore, which was like, holy shit, awesome! Like
for everybody,
I so can't argue with that. Yes,
lore
that's like
is
a lore
largely
thing.
interchangeable. It's a largely
100%.
interchangeable term with fluff, but
That can be super fun. And if you do that I think is a good excuse if you're going to get into like having weird camo requirements. That's a good reason to do it.
Yeah.
In terms of how things like Shamags and other camos work, I'll let you guys speak to that.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
All right, so
Sounds like you're charging up.
All right, my favorite games involve no camouflage rules at all.
Okay.
No tags, no markings, no nothing. You're fighting
Sounds
an enemy
funny.
team, and you need to understand that the people that are not on your team will shoot at you.
Yeah.
And it works really well with small games. We used to do that all the time, 10 on 20, 10, 12 on 12, 15 on 15, whatever, up to about 20 on 20. After that, now again, like I've done a lot of really big games, and tan and green works just fine. People bitch about it. Well, his tan didn't look quite a tan enough where he's wearing a green rig. Okay, fine, that kind of shit happens. Whatever. You're playing airsoft, just walk back to respawn and shut the fuck up. So there's that. And then, like, if you see 6 dudes running towards you shooting and they're all in green, and you look down and you're like, looks a little tan, they're probably not in the team. It's not that complicated. It isn't.
Oh, but it is. I assure you that it is.
Oh, I know. As somebody who's staffed a majority of
I would say this is a very
God.
versus in practice situation. I want to be 100% with you, but I just the on the ground
Well-
reality, which you probably know better than I do.
Right.
Um,
That's
People are
why
just
But
too
again, back to
stupid.
smaller, more intimate games. Arguably, like a fun force multiplier.
Yeah. Our old group
100%.
could tell each other based on what their guns sounded like. I'm not kidding. Like, I knew when Big Nick was shooting at me because his gun had a very specific sound.
With the
I knew when
flamethrower, I do kind of get that similar. People get that on me as well.
We're going back to when there was about 23, 24 of us, and we
There you
played
go.
every weekend. Usually on Wednesday nights, we got together for a couple hours before the sun went down. Like, I knew the sound of these dudes' farts. Like, it was bad. So, no, that's for Wookiee. And, like, realistically, like, it's a lot different when you get into big caliber games. At which point in time, and again, the armband thing does work. I'm not arguing its validity. I'm going to argue that it's just stupid. I would be fine with doing like an IR tape on the back of your helmet, maybe across your shoulders, maybe the corners of your shoulders from behind, so that the guy behind you realizes you're on his team.
That's interesting.
But I don't really think that you need to identify yourself with people in front of you. We're assuming that you're advancing into something, and if it's not the guys in your squad, and your comms work really well, and you know how to operate comms, which I know is a huge.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah, I know. Matt's already dead.
Those are two
No.
lies that you just said. Neither of those things are accurate ever.
I'm setting
at
up
any
too
point,
high, but I wanted to
ever.
fall off my chair.
I beg to differ. I watched one team use comms incredibly effective for one game.
I
And then
don't
we-
believe you.
And
I've heard
then we had to disband the team because everybody cried.
I straight up don't believe you.
The operation was at Hunter's Creek. It was called Iran. The team I'm talking about was the Saints. We all had comms. We all knew how to use them, and we just literally.
And that's why the Saints were OP.
No.
Simple
it was
as.
strictly the fact that we worked well as a team, and everybody cried about it, so we had to break up, and it broke my heart. But that said, I think that in a real, you've been to like Milsim West games, you've been to John Lou games, you understand the need for having communications, and lacking that makes camo. I mean, if you had great comms and everybody knew how to work comms, and you knew who to, you stay with your squad leader, you work as a unit. Yeah, I know, I'm going way out on a limb here, but if you were to do all these things, camouflage wouldn't matter, is my argument. And I would love to see us stop catering to the lowest common denominator. Now that I've been doing this for 20 years and catering to the lowest common denominator, I don't want to do it. I want to take guys who actually want to learn, who want to know what comms are supposed to be for, understand how to relay messages. Yeah, I know it's a big leap of faith, but if we could
To your
do
point,
it,
yeah,
could you
no,
imagine how
God,
cool-
that'd be amazing. I mean, frankly, I think, and a really interesting point on the Milsom West side of things, if someone had come to me 5 years ago, at that point, Airsoft has already started to make its transition over from like what our style of play was 15 years ago, where we kind of all knew each other, and we could absolutely run a game where one team had digital patterns and one team had non-digital patterns, and if it would have expected that to work.
Yeah.
I think the fact that something like Milsom West can be a successful business model where the requirements are nothing short of insane, like
Oh, yeah.
in a cool way. Like, I mean, they make, there's like a cut sheet that's like 2.5 pages long of stuff that you basically need to bring to a game and will be expected and inspected upon arriving at the game that you have, and people still
Jeez.
show up and actually fill out the requirements successfully.
Yeah.
Shows that there is an appetite for the more complicated, more interesting, more nuanced requirements for equipment out there. So no, I completely agree with you. I think that you need to make that very apparent in the kind of game that you're running.
Absolutely.
If you're planning on just running a 800 person, we're all shooting at each other. Not even
Right.
800 person. Let's say 200 person. We're all just going to shoot at each other, battle hack style, minimal
Right.
story, basic objectives kind of game.
Right.
Armbands are probably going to do just fine for you. That way, you don't need to deal with your player base being like, is X camo okay for this or whatever? You're not going to deal with fielding 150 different questions. People can wear whatever the hell they want. They put an armband on. Easy as. If you're planning on running something that's more Milsim oriented, make that obvious. Make sure that people know what they're getting into. The people that are actually sort of into that kind of stuff will almost certainly be able to prepare a ridiculously detailed loadout that probably fits your requirements perfectly. So again, know your player base, know what you're getting into, and probably give that a lot of credence when you're developing your equipment requirements.
Yeah, I think that really is kind of one of the most important thing, as far as like this particular aspect. I mean, one of the things that we didn't talk about was like the actual guns. Like I've been to games where they restrict guns for each side.
Yeah, World War II games have done that in the past. That's a tough one. But again, if you know somebody the kind of person that's willing to show up to a, like, Milsom, I believe Milsom West did a World War II game.
Yep.
With that kind of thing. Somebody who's willing to show up to those kinds of games that knows what the word FARB means probably is going to show up with the proper equipment and a gun that fits the bill for the faction that they're on.
You remember the guys from Ock Luft?
Sure do.
Raymond and those guys?
Yeah, Derek. Derek was Ock Luft at one point, yeah. They had a tank too. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, they had a nice anti-tank gun, but I digress. Those guys did World War II German impressions, and it was pretty cool. Like watching those dudes blow out with Kar 98s was really neat. Even if they came to our games, they still came in their own uniform, which I thought was really cool. And they had the Kar 98s and they carried Lugers, and I'm like, you guys are nuts. Like, they didn't get into the political side of it. They just went for the impression they were going to.
To John's point that he just posted in the chat there, yeah, I would tend to agree. Thank you. Especially at the games that are kind of catering to everyone, it's like a show up and play game, which most of our games have been intended for. In the past 10 years, I would say.
Oh yeah.
They're not like a Milsom West where they're charging $200 a head and really expecting the people that are dedicated to be showing up.
Sure.
I think. And you guys, as op runners and as actual honest-to-God staffers, could probably speak to it better. You're always going to have somebody, and you always need to have some way to compensate for that. The other thing, actually, and this just popped into my head, in support of something like at least having an armband system, even if you're... Because you guys have... I think we've done this before where we've had not camo requirements, but like camo... restrictions where you've not been allowed to wear a certain type of camo if you're on a team, but then there is also an armband option. I think that probably works pretty well for the schmucks that just show up in jeans and a t-shirt, at least to give them something to do. But what just occurred to me is that this does create a balancing issue. If you're very strict about these kinds of things and you don't have a pre-registration system, and you're just sort of relying on team restrictions to be balanced when people show up, they're probably not going to be. I mean, we've had tons of games where we've had 20 people show up in tan and 7 people show up in green, and boom, suddenly you have a balancing issue. If you're going to be at which
I'll also
to
say
bring
that. Go ahead. Keep it up.
Okay. So to bring this around to an actual point, what I'm suggesting is if you're going to have strict requirements for camo and things of that nature, and you are not going to have some kind of armband option, you must use a pre-registration system. If you don't do that, you are going to have balance problems. So that's just my thought.
Yeah, that was almost exactly what I was going to interrupt and say regardless. So yes, couldn't agree more. And I was really just also making the point that at Redbrook we had a pre-registration system.
Yes.
Yep.
And at Redbrook we had 3-to-1 balance issues some games. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
thankfully, the way this stuff fundamentally
what they were, I think everybody still had a good time for what.
That's what
of course. No, absolutely no doubt.
Airsoft, for better or worse, probably for the better, really isn't Call of Duty in that 7 guys versus 24 guys is going to be that miserable for the former, even if the former are pros.
I'm gonna say they can honestly be an advantage to have a smaller team, especially if you all have radios and you're better coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or have ever learned anything about using cover and hiding.
Yeah, I watched the Tombstone guys doing one of the night games we had because they all had nods.
Oh, and no.
No, really. There was like 5 or 6 of them, but they were so cohesive and literally just ran.
They'll run train.
Yeah, but they had a great time. And everybody else was like, well, we had no idea who we were shooting at. We'd see shadows every now and then with flashlights, And they got hit and they called out and stuff. But, I mean, they had a really good time. So we just basically made it go hunt those guys. And sent like 20 dudes to go chase down 5. It was great. And everybody had a blast. And I'm like, okay.
That's the important part, obviously.
Yeah, was it some of the, similar note, some of the most fun I had by far at the, just because obviously it was the tail end of my first season. It was, an hour before my first zombie game experience was Halloween 2016 at Redbrook. We were, Tom, I think it was actually me and you in the middle of some shootout. It was my first day with that Mark 23. I got off you, Mike. In the bottom of one of your pistol boxes. Tom, I don't even know how many channels. For one reason or another, you had 3 Bowfangs on you, and they all had the backlights on.
Oh God, yes! I was lit up like a fucking Christmas tree.
Hey,
what the fuck was I doing? Why did I have 3? Oh no,
I don't know. You obviously were obviously maybe on
Opcom. I had an Opcom radio, my own personal team, and then like the rest of the team, the faction that I was on. So that's possible.
Okay, yeah.
I do very occasionally pull out the RTO leadership
you had
role,
this Christmas tree in the form of a chest ring on you. You get up from a tarp. I'm like, oh, cool. And then our mutual associate Paul, who's got me 3 or 4 consecutive times hiding in the same bush. I didn't learn the first 2 or 3 times that he was probably going to be there the next time, and he just kept pegging me from 6 feet away. No, that was a good op. Yeah, Dusk. Just a tangent. Again, we could probably go off on for a good half hour another show. People love their night games. People love their day games. Dusk games are really something else. You got to manage to, if you're
I'll stick my neck out for Dusk
rotation games. At an opera at a field. It's definitely a lot of fun. Probably even indoors, depending on if you happen to be
Ooh,
playing at
Got a
some
lot of
old,
windows.
some old industrial,
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah.
And that's totally different lighting
Yeah,
than
they
too in
start
the
to get real
afternoon.
long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we
Even
were
if
at the grain mills there, once it started getting towards like nighttime and the grain mills.
Oh God, I got shot. I probably got shot 3 times, like just looking at the lake.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Everybody would stop and they're like, "Wow, this is beautiful." Thwap thwap shit. No,
Oh shit.
put the red rag on. You see this though? That dude wanders over, he gets shot.
So right.
There's a whole row of dead dudes just staring off at the water. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounded like a blast. I mean, the 50
good
pounds
times.
of metal shit falling from 30 feet on.
Yeah.
Cliffs on
I mean,
people
it
doesn't
was
sound like as
going
much
between
blast.
watching the sunset and almost getting killed by a staircase that was falling apart actively up above you.
Well,
Very
that was
good.
only because there was so many people on the stairs. Let's be fair.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it would have held up
specifically
fine
said,
for.
do not go up past the first floor. Okay, everybody's in the third floor. Everybody. I walk up there, I'm like, there's 30 dudes. I'm like, what are you doing up
How
here?
did this happen?
Oh Lord.
And I'm like, do you not see the stairs? They are literally falling apart. There's caution tape. They are painted red. Oh, yeah, I stepped over that one. Oh,
Toddler proofing.
good.
Toddler proofing.
Good. I mean,
That's
I
what-
think that honestly, like razor wire should be something we could incorporate
Right?
into safety, but I don't think that it would ever add any value besides
Right.
more people would get hurt because they're stupid.
That's all airsoft really is a toddler proofing simulator. There's our podcast title.
You're not wrong.
Our episode
so not
title.
wrong.
Anyway,
Unfortunately,
welcome,
well-
by the way, sorry, Tom. Welcome, by
your
the way, Evan.
TPS.
Yes,
Your
returned.
TPS.
Toddlers tend not to bring large sets of bolt cutters to the game as part of their loadout,
Or sledgehammer.
or sledgehammers.
But I've seen
So
that on
you know,
airsofters.
I see some guy walking up with a Halligan, like a breaching tool on his back. I'm like, all right, what are you gonna do with that?
Yeah, what are you doing with that? Or the guys that have the machete on their back. I'm like,
Because if that isn't made of foam, I'm going to ask you to leave it in your car. Thank you very much.
God, Halligan. I forgot what those were. I just Googled it. Oh, man.
Yeah, we had the hotel game. We had there were dudes that showed up at the hotel game without airsoft guns.
Yes.
They had a backpack full of breaching tools.
Yes, this is the only time I actually get to use these. Oh boy!
And I'm like, so what team are you on? And he goes, I don't care.
I'm just here to break shit.
I'm literally just here to destroy this place. And I'm like, give me your money, man. Go do your
God
job.
bless.
By all means.
And nobody got hurt, right? Yeah, obviously.
He left. He was happy. He got his money's worth. I'm sure. He might have breached a bed or a concrete wall. I have no idea.
Good deal.
I can remember the mattresses and the box springs being used as portable walls in the hallways.
Oh god, that was
They just
insanity.
threw them up and chucked them down. I'm like, oh my god.
Yep.
They
I
just
still
got
have. Wait a
nuts.
minute. Let me see if I can go find it.
All right, you step out a sec. Honestly, that's all we got to say about prerequisites and stuff. But speaking of just being here to do something specific, I'm sure you guys will appreciate my final point. And that is with regard to core gameplay. Evan, I'm sure this is something you can comment on ad nauseum if we really turn you loose.
Oh, you're gonna be so proud of me.
Tom, proceed.
I have a mirror that I made out of a broken mirror from the hotel, and then a leg that was on an end table that we were using to like stick around corners. And actually, look at shit. This thing is like a chapter relic for our airsoft team.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, and this is a cheap hotel end table leg, again broken off, sharp metal, etc. And then a mirror with some tape that I brought that we had just smashed the fucking mirror and covered the outside of it in tape so we didn't cut ourselves on it. Using this as a tool to look around corners and stuff like that. Very high level.
Oh, that's what it's for. Okay.
Yes.
I see a cardboard box. You must have gone to the hotel game. Yeah, that was absolutely insane, man. Literally watching people show up with no airsoft gear at all and just like straight up demolition gear.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, are you going to hit somebody with that? And they're like, oh, no. I just wanted to rip a door off the hinge. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
okay. And one of the kids, Dan,
They know what they want.
His name. Like everybody was running down and putting those little slap locks on the backside, the little slide lock things. So he was like literally running down and just kicking the doors until they exploded. He would giggle and run to the next door. His entire day was made by blasting, and he was a big boy. Like
Some people pay $40 to do that.
Yeah.
Why not?
I
Take
don't
their
know where
money.
else you got.
Hey,
I mean, without
we have those destruction rooms, where you go.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. That's true.
I was ahead of my
Break
curve.
plates and
I'm
stuff.
way
so
ahead of the curve.
It's not that different.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
Well, we can have a podcast about breaking shit.
Charge
just
people
as our next-
by the door, because I think that's how they do those like destruction rooms. You get to like take 25 swings or whatever. You get 5 doors. There you go.
It's not a bad gig.
Sure.
I don't, like that
have,
was
like,
such
a
a
hard
one-off
cap.
kind of game, though. Well, it was a one-off game, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if we'll ever get a hotel that they're going to let us trash like we were able for that one.
That was kind of unique. Yeah, that doesn't.
And
That's not
then-
an opportunity that comes up with any regularity, is it?
Yeah, like we've got the chance to do some really cool things here in Buffalo, West New York area. I think we were one of the first people to have a Huey helicopter land in an airsoft game.
I would say that's
And
probably
that was-
accurate.
That was in 2007. I think the next person had one land in like 2009, 2008. It was like a year after our Black Hawk Down game. And because we had such a great rapport with the guys from the guards, with Pete and Chris and those guys, like we always had Humvees, Deuce and a Halfs, and like Northern Wind, we had 30 Humvees. 30.
That was nuts.
That was like what, 07, 06?
I think I got more vehicle kills in that game than possibly anybody has ever gotten ever in one
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, that was
That was
nuts.
insane.
Like you couldn't throw rocks without hitting moving Humvees. It was
Yeah,
crazy. But yeah, it's definitely, we've done some cool things, and I think that, if it wasn't for the fact of where we were at that time and the relationship we had with those people, we wouldn't have gotten the cool AOs we've gotten locally. We had to actively pursue friendships with people, and I'm not regretting any of that. I still love all the guys from the guard we dealt with, and all the former field owners and stuff. I have no umbrage towards them. It's just like, we did some really cool stuff. Easy there, Evan. That's all yesterday. We're not throwing rocks at that house. I don't live there anymore. And but yeah, we've done really well, and I think that we've got a chance to have really cool things that other people have never seen or never had a chance to do. The hotel game, the helicopter. Like I said, we've done some really cool stuff, but I don't know. I'm off on a tangent again. So.
Sure. No, it's a good point. But yeah, that pretty much wraps all that up. I really do want to jump into, now that we've kind of gotten our giant preamble out of the way, just getting into the core gameplay itself. How does a game like this, or an event like this, play versus a 4-hour session at an indoor joint? Similarities, differences, things we should actually do's and don'ts. Yeah, I'll just open the floor right back up again. Mike, maybe you want to start this up?
Yeah, I'll fill this out for a second. I'm gonna have to go grab some more water. My throat's getting dry again.
Oh yeah, no problem. Tom,
I
take it
think
away.
that as far as like the actual gameplay itself,
Yeah.
the gameplay itself to me always comes down to a couple of different aspects. Again, your player base has to be on board for the antics you want to provide, and I've always found that in order to make a game more fun, I just ramped up the ridiculousness.
Sure.
So we already had this fantastic fictional land with all of its history. It's both rich and deep history. And we could pull out of that like anything, like literally anything. So, I would watch I read a book about Jack Ryan, and I'm like, we need to add a spy aspect to this. All right, cool. So now we got spies. Each team has a spy, because that was a thing. And then
I don't know, like that. Yeah.
yeah, and then we've done double spies, where he's not actually a spy on your team, he's actually a spy on the other team, but he's also spying on your team. So it's like 2 layers of so it all depended on if you could catch him like trying to broadcast on the radio, which he had to do like once an hour, or he was considered to be rogue. And spy has his own pressure to like sneak away and then like call somebody on a radio to check in with Opcom. And if they didn't show up in the hour, then I would tell them they were rogue. And then they had to basically like try and get out of there to go to a respawn point. So, but then of course everybody's paranoid, so everybody's like, well, he's the spy. No, he's the spy. No, that guy's the spy. Like, it was hysterical. And there was a lot of like team shooting, which was kind of amusing to me. But again, pulling ideas off movies, off of science fiction books, like out of gaming and stuff, gives you all the core ideas for the gameplay itself. And then the gameplay is just you cater to your people. The more LARPy we got, the more fun I did at least.
I think that's probably the best point that you can make is cater to the people that you plan to be coming to the game. If it's going to be if it's an op that mostly local people are going to be attending, and you're going to be advertising at the local level, cater to those folks. You don't have to make it. You don't have to make it something that is going to be fun for everybody. What was it? I think Mike kind of sort of addressed most of the things that I was thinking of. A good point that comes up a lot of the time is that have a bunch of levers that you can kind of pull. If you've ever DM'd a game of D&D, you definitely know what I'm talking about, but make sure that you have the ability to adjust on the fly. Because guarantee it, you can set up a perfect op plan that has, orders, fragos, fragmentary orders, secondary orders, things like that. And you're going to have a situation where by some luck, godforsaken means, somebody completes 3 objectives within 15 minutes. And oh shit, I only had 1 objective left for that team, and this is going to be a problem. Make sure that you have enough fragos and that you have enough leeway in your op plan. You can kind of work on the fly and adjust things to make sure that they're going as smoothly as possible, and that you'll actually get the full 6 hours of gameplay that players are expecting.
Sure.
Well,
Evan, I know you're off camera, but you are here. Can you speak on this at all?
Yeah, the man himself.
Do you have any experience with this matter?
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's ever run an app I shouldn't say that. I remember we did one op in the league in the old days where about 2 o'clock the game just kind of stopped, as the guy running it, who at the time thought running ops was super easy, and after that op, he
didn't do that anymore. Yeah, funny how that works, isn't it?
He went on the forums and was like, "Okay, yeah, I was totally wrong. That sucked."
Wow.
And I think it's just a matter, like Tom was saying, is just kind of knowing your audience and knowing what is going to work or what's going to appeal to that particular group, and then just coming up with enough of those particular objectives to keep them busy all day.
And from a game design perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, I see it as an important thing to kind of keep things non-specific. If you know that there's an objective that people are going to have to hold for a certain amount of time or something like that. I know you guys did this, and I was always kind of curious why. When you wrote your op plans, I would oftentimes see that you had a hold X for 15 minutes or something like that. To me, that seems like a great lever to sort of have as a game balancing perspective. Say, instead of 15 minutes, you could just have, say in the op plan, hold for X amount of time, notify command once you get it, and they'll let you know how long you have to hold it for. That right there is a lever where you can kind of slow the game down. If somebody's getting through things too fast, you can change it to, say, hold it for 20 minutes instead of hold it for 15 minutes, just to slow that team down and kind of put the brakes on that to make sure that people aren't getting through things too fast. Am I totally crazy there?
I don't remember if we ever used it that way verbatim, but I feel like
rarely, I would say. Yeah.
There being at least being an objective like that. But no, it's an interesting point. I don't know if there was anything in the way of a rhyme or reason that we didn't use that more as you said, a lever to pull or failsafe versus the main objective. But yeah, it might be something that I had overlooked for north of a season of writing out plans. I would definitely be open to
I would want to give if I had not that I ever have, but if I went through and actually wanted to run my own game, first thing I would think of would be, as an op runner, giving myself as many options as possible for what the objectives look like and how I can adjust them on the fly.
Yeah, a lot of times when we ran games, especially, I know which ones you're talking about, Tom, we used to use things like hold the objectives to slow faster teams down. If you had a team that was a real big bunch of go-getters and you knew they were going to be go-getters, And you know, if you do a registration, you kind of get a feel, especially if you know the local populace real well.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, like if I need something done, like I'd call Nickel City Rangers or Tombstone because I know they'll push hard. Whether or not they'll complete the objectives is a whole other story. Although I will say I watched one of NCR guys carry both of those stupid water pods I had across the field, and literally just dragging them
Oh
over his
God,
shoulder.
those.
Yeah, these
Stand
100-pound
filters.
things. Oh my God, I'm dying.
Yeah.
No, not stand filters, the big silver torpedo things we had.
Oh,
They'll fucking get. Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
fuel drop pods for the
Yeah.
aircraft. Yeah.
Yeah, like they were nuts, and they were heavy, and they were awkward as all heck to carry. And if you're going through the woods, forget about it. You were banging.
And you just get this like 300-pound jack guy that's like, yeah, I got this. And you're like, as an op planner, you don't really think about that kind of thing happening because, like, yeah, these are 150-pound airdrop canisters.
Yeah,
This will take a team easily take a team 20 minutes to get to the other side of the field.
yeah.
This guy will sprint him over there in 5 minutes. And you're like,
Oh no!
Right.
All right, now you got to hold for 20 minutes.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we used to do that, and like if one team was totally decimating another team, we would do airstrikes.
Yeah.
We would send admins out and basically say, "Hey, look, everybody in this area is dead. Take a walk back to respawn," and that puts them back to see if you can get the game moving again. We had to do a lot of reactive stuff like that because for our group at least, we had, typically speaking, one of two types of airsofters: either super aggressive or really not aggressive at all. And depending on who you're with, dictated kind of how their gameplay was. But if you know that, you can cater the ops to make it more interesting for both teams. Give them objectives where they have to hold it, and and that definitely makes a big difference. And again, you got to kind of know what you're catering to. This goes back to catering to people you're playing with. Who you're trying to give a good time to, and then that's what you're doing. So we always try to cover both sides, and I'm sure Evan can chime in with having like 7,000 extra fragos just in case, because you never had enough, or you had so many left over. It was one of the two.
Yeah, I mean, to Tom's point, 15 or a regular time scale for objective was primarily trying to keep things simple. Of like, all right, I know this is going to be 15 minutes. Everybody's going to know the exact amount of time that they're going to have, and there's a certain planning aspect to it as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Of allowing people who actually know what they're doing to plan ahead and say, all right, we only have 10 minutes left in this rotation and we need to hold this for 15.
Sure.
We're not even going to attempt this. And like Mike was just saying, is a lot of it comes down to, all right, I need to have 30 extra bonus objectives in case one team is actually like on the ball today. And that's kind of the problem with these local ops. I don't know necessarily how bad it is at the national level, but the local level, it's like you never know from week to week who's going to show up or who's going to back out at the last minute or what have you, or show up and they hadn't responded that they were coming and
or leave at lunchtime.
Yeah,
That
so
too.
you just
Yep.
you want to have as many options
Contingency
as
plans.
possible. Correct, without throwing them into the op plan and then making them compulsory, and then people either being confused or you trying to put out fires all day. I mean, you're going to be doing that anyway, but putting out more fires than you are already expecting. So I think there's a lot of balancing that you have to do in terms of knowing your players, trying to cater to as many different play styles as possible, keep it simple enough that you can actually run the game, and at the same time keep everything moving smoothly.
Right. Now, just back to the firefighting point, are many of these fires generally caused by operators with napalm BBs?
No. Surprisingly not.
I can say that because
That's one of our bits. That and Beer of the Week those are going to be both really
Be
good
right back,
references on merch. So get ready.
I mean, the fact that I don't run op plans anymore, I have no problem saying this. A lot of the issues that you run into are player stupidity.
I'd say probably
Like it's or none.
Yeah.
90% of the time it's like I knew after 2 minutes into my first op that that's going to be my biggest problem, because I had come up with this like it's varied, but it was typically 2 pages op sheet for every op of the basic outline of the game, the objectives on one side, and then the rules for the game in terms of medics and all that stuff on the other, just general minimum engagement distances, things like that. And the point of it was, if somebody was late or, just couldn't remember a particular rule that they had heard at the briefing.
The best. It's kind of
yeah, I mean,
the best and the worst. It's a yang yin situation.
Yeah, somebody can't get there till 10. They're going to miss the briefing, whatever. They'd have something to refer to out in the field without trying to blow up the radio and say, oh, what was the respawn rules again? Or, trying to ask your teammate the middle of a firefight. And after handing these out and doing the op briefing, there was out of maybe 50 people, there was 30 of those sheets lying in the staging area. So
was that one of the games we did?
All these people yeah, it was the first game I ever did as an op planner, and I was like, all right, all these people are fucking morons. I'm going to be answering questions on the radio all day. I'm not going to respond to all of them, because the whole point of me making these sheets was so that these people could take care of questions themselves and actually focus on playing the game instead of trying to get a hold of me. But if they, I'm not going to do them any favors by sitting on the radio.
Tom, are you there? Your
questions
I'm here.
that I
right. You were doing. I didn't realize you were doing battle meditations.
Yeah, I think that Evan's kind of hit the nail on the head with that.
100%.
No matter how hard we plan to try and make sure that every possible detail is covered so the player base will have a good idea of what's going on, plus the rule set, you usually have 25% of the guys who don't even read it. And then literally 20 minutes later, are like, what are we supposed to be doing? I'm not having any fun. Where am I supposed to go? Where's my team? And you're just like, dude, okay, I'll spoon feed it to you. Follow me in. And those are the kind of things. Like, you get real worlds every now and then with somebody gets hurt or whatever, and you have to go make sure they're okay. On a national level, you get that a lot. I don't think I've been to any one national level that wasn't at least 2 injuries ever.
That was a good point too, though, Mike. Of there's a lot of guys out there, and this is to a certain extent player based, but it's also an extent of kind of what level of participation put in as a runner of there's a lot of guys out there who are, unless there's a quick time event or a giant blinking arrow telling them what to do, have absolutely no concept of initiative and kind of making their own fun. So like if their objectives aren't crystal clear, if you aren't there saying, hey, you guys need to go take that particular building with the Christmas lights on it, they're not gonna say anything, but they're gonna get on the Facebook page and keyboard warrior the shit out of you after the fact.
That has never happened ever. Bullshit.
I mean, I've had it happen in person, but yeah, I've never been flamed via Facebook review about one of my apps.
We've definitely had people flame us via Facebook, and it makes me laugh because we're like, then why didn't you say anything when you were there? Well, I was having a good time. It's just that looking back on it, I realized it could have been better, so I'm going to bitch about it now. And I'm like, all right, man, whatever. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I mean,
after we could have done it.
Or somebody on their team is somebody who doesn't like you, and
Mhm.
they say
Yeah.
they had a great time, and then all of a sudden somebody else, that other person chimes in, and all of a sudden the great game turned into this terrible clusterfuck suddenly.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Incorrect.
So-
You actually didn't have a good time. Fuck you.
I would say, yeah, we could go
Yeah.
all night about the gamut of,
I think that a lot
things
of it
we've
comes
received in the
down
way of
to,
feedback.
you know, usually we used to ask for feedback at every game because I always wanted to know, was there something we could do better? We wanted to try and make something that would be cooler, more, interesting for the player base. Like we
Oh yeah,
always,
I loved our picnic table AARs.
yeah, at the end of the game, we'd sit
We
down.
literally just did that.
Yeah.
We got a lot of new folks here, over the course
Oh,
of tonight.
yeah.
So just for full context, we had a staging area literally around a fire pit, and at least when I was running games, Mike did a great job of this too. You could literally just have what's the word, like basically an open door, an open meeting with
round
your
table.
your op staff. At the
I
end of the
always-
day, someone obviously get a fire
even
going.
even
chill
if I
out.
wasn't a staffer, I
Talk shop.
occasionally participated in those as a
Yeah.
player.
Yep.
It was always,
Well, everyone
and then
got a
I
say.
actually, funny enough, I always, you guys might not know this, but I would always go through this with my guys that weren't as good friends with everybody else in the group and be like, hey, did everybody have fun? And it was always interesting to me as someone who had been sort of steeped in our specific style of play. It was always interesting to get outside perspectives because there were people that would say things that like, oh, that wasn't really that fun. I'm like, man, like that was like the best part of the game for me. That's really weird that like other people didn't actually like that. Strange. So like it's really, you're going to have your own biases, so it's really important to get feedback from the people that actually show up to your games and that give enough of a shit to actually give you feedback. Pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's your.
Oh sure, I had a lull in one game where I was obviously op lead, so I mean I was always obviously available to my players, but I had a certain mutual friend of ours. I'll drop his name in our admin chat because we obviously have a very strict no name dropping policy for better or worse, unless we're telling a funny story or something. But no, great guy set me aside. I think we talked for 15 minutes about not only how much better. How we could make the rest of the day go better, but future ops. I mean, it was really valuable. I've also had people approach me, face to face and tell me game element X was retarded. So again, back to the game, and again, not dropping their name either, or even saying when that was. But on the other hand, if you have no idea, of any of the context of this game, based on based within a particular setting, not our original stuff, we did a video game themed op, and want to show up and have no fucking idea about what this 30-plus-year-old franchise is, and then complain to me about how something vaguely simulating something about that was silly. I'm not going to forget about it because you spotted me for a $3 AR body pin a couple swap meets ago. Sorry, not sorry. So yeah, I mean, from a player's standpoint, just at least make the slightest effort to submit something productive if you want some kind of change. But I digress.
Well, and I think that's a point as well, as far as running games, is kind of knowing whose criticism to take seriously and whose criticism you can just be like, okay, thanks for your opinion, but go fuck yourself.
You absolutely just hit on something that I was thinking about. It's important, obviously, to take feedback and actually, factor that into your next games. Don't necessarily take feedback. Like, take feedback from the people that you kind of want to show up to your games, because it's like if you're running a a simulation type game like an Operation Irene, where you're thinking about like Black Hawk Down or something like that. If a speed softer comes to you and is having problems about the op design, you can probably be like, very cool, thank you for your feedback, and then throw that in the garbage.
Now Naruto run all the way back to the parking lot.
That's correct.
I'm not sure to all speed softwares. I know about really good.
But no, it really.
I'm saying if that's not the kind of game that you're coming up with, if that is what you're going for, and you're going for a game that's going to appeal to everybody, take all comers. Yeah, take everybody's advice. In that case, if it wasn't fun for a speed softer, maybe you got some stuff to change.
Yeah,
I would go as far as saying if you're planning something like an entire season at a local field, it's important to have a couple of games like that. And moreover, just in terms of
couldn't agree more.
Touching back on the previous points, I remember we had a couple games our friends at NCR ran, and a couple games that I ran over the course of the season, and they were not reasonably similar in that, okay, Redbrook do this LARPy objective-based stuff. We can expect something of that flavor going to that field. But
Yeah.
their games and mine were definitely, two different flavors of hot sauce, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So I guess if you have a running rotation or even a small multiple, as soon as, God forbid, you're able to get multiple people involved in op planning from the ground, at that level, you can do a lot of different stuff. Oh, okay, this guy's style is, and he's running op 1 and 3. We really liked him. And
Right.
this guy does simpler games, but we like,
I always like the Halloween games. I think that those are always and will
God.
always be my favorite.
Always fun. Everybody, I would imagine those were fun to write and probably fun to host.
They were always a good time. Like, Penyan did their hazardous containments, which were based off loosely some of the ones that we
great
did.
time.
You were involved in a ton of those, Tom.
Totally.
But I think that a lot of the, the first one we did, the first real, zombie pitch idea we did down at Hunters. And I'll never forget Wookie coming off the hill and telling me flat out, he's like, dude, I've been shelled by live artillery,
I remember this.
and I've never been more scared in my life. Like, that was fantastic. And I was like, that's the best compliment anybody could ever hope for, A lot of the stuff, we did, we burning fire pits and, really truly running zombies.
You at hazardous containment in the jail, like as the first group of people were walking into the town, that is not a memory that will ever leave my head, because those people were scared shitless. It was fucking hilarious. Oh my god. Oh yeah, 100%.
I didn't even know that was you. You sounded like you were dying, like a dead dying dude in the jail cell.
I was one of the alpha zombies in that game. So I was already dead at that point, and kind of off, just watching people slowly approach the town. Oh my god. They were they walked in, they see Mike, and they're like, all right, we're gonna go back out here. I'm just going this way.
They were supposed to come get me and take me out. And I was so convincing that something bad.
They wanted nothing to do with it.
They're like, nah, man, I'm not even going near that guy. Fuck that guy.
Yep.
He's dead already. I mean, it's fine.
Classic.
Oh my god, that was great. Yeah, I mean, those kind of games were always a really good time, and when they brought in the scientist team that Tom ran, having an entire group of dudes that showed up in the full-on Tyvek suits and the respirator masks. Oh my god, dude, it was nuts.
I remember the pictures.
Yeah, and people were like, was there a chemical spill or something? I'm like, no, we're playing airsoft. And I'm like, no, man, it's part of the game. And they're like, that's part of your game? And I'm like, yeah.
Is that real blood that guy's covered in?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
No, it's pig blood. I remember when they filled the one pit up with pig blood.
Oh my god.
So the whole thing stinks.
I remember the smell, that's for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then they'd been out in the heat all day, so by the time we get out there to play, there's this rancid pit of leaves, and somebody had to crawl around to find something. And I was like, okay, you guys are sadistic as fuck.
That was really where you want the Tyvek in a respirator.
Yeah, put the science team in there. Screw that. I'm not
in a rake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all sorts of really cool ideas, real cool concepts and stuff, and I think it's important to know. Again, it goes back to knowing who you're catering to.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Got to know your audience.
Yeah, we're trying to
touch. Yeah, I mean, it was implied in probably every point that we covered, but I mean, it is worth. It bears repeating that. If you know your crew like a certain flavor of game, obviously.
Yeah, if you have a bunch of NPCs, I think it was one of the Halloween. Was it a Halloween game where we were going around as the decon guys? And yes, it was a Halloween game. We had set up the 2 tents and stuff like that. If you have a couple of guys that are willing to NPC and actually kind of like doing that sort of stuff, and because I will go around with a weed pump sprayer and hose down random objectives, acting as a decon guy. I'll pay money to do that.
Why the hell not, right?
Cater to your audience.
Exactly.
100%.
Absolutely. So, just as a very brief, relevant digression. This is pretty much getting to the end here. If there's still a few people tuning in, but as I said in the Facebook posts on various groups, if anyone is here because they saw those, our whole shtick since this started out as a tech show is that all night and for exclusively for a little bit at the end. We're taking your tech questions. So if you got any weird projects going on, giving you grief, as always, feel free to sound off about those in the chat. Obviously, Mike ran a store twice doing that shit. Tom's an actual engineer. Evan and I have
Bold
learned
of you to
small amount
assume
of
that I know
stuff.
what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to airsoft guns, but fair enough.
If I've learned something by enough trial and error of sticking, I was just sticking a Phillips headed screwdriver in a gun barrel, by the way.
Good for you.
must
That worked out.
Actually, I do have a tech question. I do have a tech question for Mike.
Yeah.
I know this only ends
So
one way, but continue.
I mean, I bought a gun, and I ran out of BBs, so I started sticking aquarium racks in it, and now it won't shoot.
That's weird. That's really odd. I don't know why. I can't imagine why that would be. I started running. I looked at like a popcorn kernel, and I discovered, you know what? Corn kernels are kind of vaguely similar to a BB. I could probably put those in my magazines, and they jammed.
Yeah,
It was really weird.
They mic out at 6 millimeter.
Yeah.
Usually.
Like average, for sure.
Like my favorites are always like, well, how much dog hair should I add to my gearbox so I can get compression ratio? What?
Oh, that one killed me.
So I was cleaning my barrel with actual gun cleaner, and my hop up is really sticky now, and I don't know how to fix it. What? Yeah. Well, I was using hops number 9 to clean my barrel, and I'm like, yeah. So you melted your hop up bucket. Oh, well, should I replace it? Me, I don't care. Like
I got a bone to pick. I'm gonna if nobody's gonna ask me tech questions, I'm gonna have a tech tip.
Okay.
There we
And that
go.
is, do not
Tip of the week.
overuse silicone oil. If you just shoot silicone oil down your barrel and start swabbing it around and you jam that thing all the way into the back of the gun, you're going to cover your hop up in silicone oil and it isn't going to work worth a shit for like 1,000 rounds.
Yeah,
When you go to clean your barrel, sorry, go ahead, Matt. If you had something
No, I just
specific to add there.
please finish that up. I have a follow-up question.
If you want to clean your barrel, and I did not know this because I am not a sniper, I don't really generally, like most of my guns are sort of like a secondary thing that I can use when I'm not setting up explosives, but I started using a relatively accurate...
Fake explosives, to be clear.
That's
You
correct.
have liability insurance.
Usually.
You
Don't worry, I have a license for that. But I started using a relatively accurate, quote-unquote, like sniper rifle type thing that's intended to be very accurate, and I discovered that really you never want to... that silicone oil is good for very few things. I would recommend, if you really want to clean your barrel out nicely, take the barrel, and this is a little bit more advanced of a tech thing. You can find plenty of YouTube videos on how to do it without fucking up your entire gun. Take the barrel out of the gun, remove the hop up from the barrel, take the barrel out of the hop up unit, remove the hop up the bucking, and clean it out with isopropyl alcohol. That shit will be squeaky clean. There won't be any residue left over. You won't be attracting dirt, things like that. Silicone oil and other oily type materials, if they stay inside your barrel and you're not playing airsoft inside of a clean room, you're going to be getting dirt, dust, things of that nature that are going to get into the... It's going to mess with everything. Really, just do not abuse that stuff. Lubricants are not intended for cleaning barrels.
No, it's good to know. I just don't know why I never really did that, because that's exactly... I mean, the procedure is exactly how I've always cleaned barrels. I mean, I've never just stuck a cleaning rod down to the bucking and figured it'd be fine. But
lots of people don't know what the hell that red... If your gun comes... maybe it's just a TM thing, but most guns that I've bought come with the cleaning rod, and that cleaning rod oftentimes has a red band printed on the cleaning rod, and that's intended specifically to tell you how far to put the cleaning rod into the barrel so you don't stab it into the bucking and cause all kinds of problems.
Those are called...
I just use a screwdriver.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's the only way, if one will.
So we had a guy bring a magazine for his gas pistol into the shop, and he had taken the gas valve out, and then had gotten like the spray can of like liquid silicone, and just sprayed a whole shit ton in there, and put the gas valve back in, and he couldn't figure out why his gun was like spraying water.
I wonder. Shocker.
Yeah, I've seen some weird things, definitely.
Totally believe it.
Yeah, John had a weird one. I'm just not sure. I'll just open this up to you guys. I'm not sure why. Generally, ICSs are pretty good about that.
Is it a split neck? Start there. Is it a split neck box? They always had
chickens and a few goats.
Is it a ICS? Is it an ICS anniversary M4?
Oh God!
Because if it is, just throw it in the trash because it's an awful looking gun and I hate it.
That's a good. That's generally a solid policy. Yeah.
Yeah, airsoft and anniversary editions of things kind of
Oh my
sound
god,
and look on paper
I-
like they mix with water and electricity.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
G&G
I hated that. I
veteran
hated
one,
those guns,
the G&G veteran they made
and
for
everyone had
14.
those.
Oh,
Everyone
yeah.
Yeah.
had those
What
for
was
like
the deal with
a
that? I don't know.
year.
Were they cheap? Was that
No,
the like? Is that why everybody had one?
Potter-
Like, what was so good about them? Why did everybody buy one?
Nothing was good about them.
The reason was the War Store had gotten them in bulk.
Oh, because
And
they
they
had
were
that hideous
pushing
side
them-
folding stock. I remember Ruvon had
Yeah.
one. I was like, that
They
thing
were-
looks like a trash fire.
Yeah, they were like
Yeah.
400 FPS out of the box, so they were already pre-upgrading. So everybody was like, "Oh my god, I gotta have
No,
this."
Great.
I'm pretty sure, John.
You
Yeah,
know.
but
Ask me twice to stop. Yeah, no, John, it doesn't.
So yeah, what were we talking about before we got into Q&A, just so we can keep the content train rolling? Oh, what I just wanted to say to you guys, when Mike, you mentioned that Eli's old pet project about the
Steampunk, yeah,
world that stopped at World War II. That would be a fun, or even anything like that would be a fun hypothetical. To take anywhere from 2 to 5 episodes, just exploring, how we build the world from the get-go, and through the lens of purpose building it to play airsoft games in, because obviously it's fun to try and adapt a novel or a video game setting, but it's just a different job.
When
just in terms of
when is Evan going to have his camera set up? He can do Rochambeau as well.
I don't know, Evan, what do you think? Well, that brings me to my next point. If anyone wants to reach help finance the show, that we don't have any proper donation mediums set up yet, but if you want to launder it through one of our personal accounts, reach out to the podcast email, brokengearsairsoft@gmail.com. We have officially set up an OnlyFans fund for Evan's webcam, and from there we will be able to get the $40 to
I was waiting to see how far you could get before
And
everyone.
OnlyFans
looking for a
fund.
boss.
Like, I'm trying to imagine that. Like, where like it's like a GoFundMe, but it's on OnlyFans.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that the thought that you have here? That's interesting.
How long do you think it's before they get into that business too? I mean,
Fair enough.
that ass though, guys. Just any feedback you don't want to leave in the chat, or if you see this after the chat and for some reason don't want to leave a YouTube comment, any questions for us, including tech questions when we're offline, whatever, please just reach out again. BrokenGearsAirsoft@gmail.com. If you're not confident you can spell it all the way, it's also in our YouTube channel description. I spelled it wrong when I was registering the account and had to do it without the S in Airsoft.
Nice work.
I had to restart the following afternoon and wondered why I couldn't log in. So, yeah,
I'm just gonna say if somebody doesn't want to leave comments right now on
they can mail you letters.
the chat, they're cowards, and I'm not gonna listen to anything they
That
have
seems
to say.
yeah. No, that seems reasonable. I can't argue with that.
Rock Air John, probably undoubtedly the closest thing we'll ever get to a serious benefactor or fan with any sort of reputation or clout. Was just asking about the streaming schedule. So
Or a streamer with any reputation or clout. Let's not.
It's a good point.
We're
We're back at it after a while. Obviously, just shit going on with mostly in the way of my lack of initiative. I've just been trying to get into the heads of some of our former clientele, so I can write better op plans.
That's
It's
a
not only
mistake.
an art. It's what do you call it? What's the fucking word? It's a performance art piece I'm doing. So I'll be keeping you guys posted on my page, etc. And but yeah, just tentatively, what's up? Go ahead.
So we're going to do it all in interpretive dance.
Yeah.
Sure.
Evan will type out the captions for the vision impaired, but since our video feed is a combined 144p. But
I think mine looks pretty good.
I think that he should just read the Rochambeaudian history and then we'll dance to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we
can do all of these. There's no A or B situation. We can do all of this.
I can tell you right now, I'm not doing any more weddings. So.
We only had to do the one. It was fine.
Oh my god!
I mean, out of all the people that I've married, which actually the number is 14 right now, that's the only one that's ended in divorce. So I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing better than the Catholic Church, and all the Presbyterians too.
Oh, for sure.
Rock Air John, to use the Rochester vernacular, which I have before without even making an issue. Dead ass. We are tentatively planning for every other Friday or thereabouts, but keep an eye on our YouTube channel. As soon as you get to the front of it, I'll always have the event set up where you can see, okay, they're going to be on in a day and a half or whatever, and at least then you'll have a URL you can bookmark or set up notifications for. Everyone definitely go hit that notification bell Evan, that's one of the things you
Matt-
love saying when you ran your
Yes,
channel,
I
right?
do.
Like, share, and subscribe. Don't comment. Just like, share, and subscribe.
No, don't comment.
Don't
So
read those.
if Deadass is a Rochester thing, I'm assuming the
I don't
Buffalo
even know if it's a
equivalent
Rochester
is
thing.
the Deadass, since you guys love adding the onto every mode of
Major
That is
Road,
generally
Road,
accurate.
Food
Yes.
source. Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I had no idea that was a Buffalo thing. That was so
Oh, yeah.
confusing to me. Someone said, "Why wouldn't you just call that the 90? Or like, wouldn't you call that 90?" I'm like, "You mean the 90?" They're like, "No, just 90." Like, are you stupid? And I'm like,
Are you? You want to
"What?"
fight?
Well, that's
You
kind of an
don't like
odd
the
example,
girl,
isn't
I'll
that?
fight you.
Like,
No, Matt. Nobody else does that. That's a Buffalo thing. We call it the X. Nobody else does that. Apparently,
Okay,
they do
but
that in California and nowhere else.
it's just it sounds to me like one of the lesser offenses, because if you're talking about like
I'm a
some like an
Buffalonian. I'm
object,
right there with you.
something
I call it
use,
the
like
90.
the Thruway, the 90.
No,
Is it
it's apparently
not-
90, or you just
Okay,
call
but
it or Interstate 90.
Oh, okay,
Hey,
yeah, people are going to say, "Oh yeah, I went on Interstate 90."
yes, people actually say that. That is absolutely correct. Or people say I went on 90.
It's like
Weird.
saying
That's what sounds weird to me, because like
it's like
not
Americans
doing it.
saying
isn't to
I
say
went
like
to the hospital, as opposed to
Yes,
Brits saying
going to hospital.
I went to
yeah.
I went to hospital.
that's
Yeah.
what I was getting at. Like I've heard some people refer to organizations like the CIA as just CIA. It's nice
Well, no,
way
because
to know
that makes
what
sense.
it
those
is.
Because if
people
you
are
think
just
about the acronym means, that makes sense.
That's what it
the
sounds like.
Central Intelligence Agency, not, you know.
But like that commercial they put out with a while ago that everyone was making fun of, the woman in it says, "Oh yeah, I work at CIA." Like it's not the same as. It just sounds weird to me as an example. If it's an
Oh,
object,
sure.
I don't know.
It's a proper title.
Yeah,
For the record, the
Oh,
Canadian is just over here laughing because I'm just trying hard not to put A or ask you if it's right.
I keep forgetting you actually are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Oh
No
god,
shame there.
I'm about to screen share a friend of the show, Joe, who shall remain nameless otherwise, just posted one of the infamous I'm not sure of who, but one of the Tyvek troopers from last game, or from what was that, Halloween 2021?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
No, we weren't open till Halloween 2020, whatever the fuck it was. But yeah, hell yeah, Tyvek
I
Nation.
remember what was. We've done so many of them, so it's really hard for me to keep track of. We did one at Ransomville, and we had the attrition where the third we picked people off both teams. We had like boxes and stuff you had to go find. Were you guys at that one or no?
I was.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you remember like how we just at the end of it we grabbed everybody and turned them all into basically
Vampires.
zombies.
Yep.
And then both teams had to get through the zombies to get to the extraction zone.
Yes.
Oh god.
The amount of screaming and yelling that
Was very
emanated
good.
from Ransomville
Very good.
was amazing. I've never been happier than that. But that was so good.
That was wonderful.
Yeah. Right before like our third last tangent, I thought there was something else I was going to get on. What were? I mean,
God, who
could've been
knows?
you read it. You read the wrong tone, man. Don't worry. You're off the hook. Oh man. What were some of the last items Evan was mostly talking about? Do you remember, Evan?
I don't know. I shit talk a lot. I think the
Right, yeah, well,
last thing I think
just
the last thing
before-
I was talking about was if you don't comment right now, you're a coward.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
again, reasonable. Yeah.
Again, goes without saying.
No keyboard warriors.
Or all keyboard warriors. It's really just a matter of
Take your pick.
One to the
Yeah.
other.
no in between.
Was
I
it something
suppose
about tossed salad and scrambled eggs, Matt?
No, that's the other show. We'll talk about that later. I can share with. Oh, I don't have my phone linked, but I took a very nice picture of my Eve poster, and I was watching Frasier at the time, and I had to get the lighting on both the glare of the $20 poster frame. Yeah, 22 by 28
Very
poster
important.
frame at Hobby Lobby, $20 right now. I believe it. It's one of those ones that like fall apart if you look at it wrong. What a sham! But also the
Okay.
screen of
Yeah.
my $280
You're only
4K television.
you're only paying for the people who own Hobby Lobby to buy more shit from ISIS. It's fine.
That's correct.
So I got to tell you guys actually a story about my sister. She's a classics professor, and
Okay.
We're getting back to
hates
Scipio.
Hobby
Oh, I
Lobby.
forgot to tell you, Evan, before you.
Funny enough, my
before you
sister is a
got on-
classics major, so that's really interesting.
And Evan, before you got on, we talked about Scipio. I compared myself to Scipio Africanus, and I was very proud because I wouldn't know who he was if not for one of our conversations.
Oh God.
But, all right.
Yeah,
We've got
my-
when we get to Patreon, you guys will be able to see the rest. But we're
There you go.
going off the air now. Thank you for our 2 viewers, maxing out at 5 or 6 who came out tonight. But no, a lot of new faces. And a friend of mine
Thanks,
told
guys.
me that that viewer count doesn't necessarily register if it's just randos not logged in. So this
Sure.
is just everyone. This is just everyone with, specifically in this case, YouTube accounts.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with Hobby Lobby, John, with Hobby Lobby and
Whatever.
having Vallejo. Makes no sense to me. I usually
All right.